The letter arrives on a Tuesday morning, sealed with black wax that smells of old roses and something metallic I can't identify. My coffee grows cold as I stare at the elegant script spelling out my name, Mia Rousseau, in ink that looks suspiciously dark against the cream parchment. The weight of it in my hands feels heavier than paper should. I break the seal with trembling fingers, and the words blur together at first. Blood debt, generations overdue, marriage contract. The name at the bottom stops my heart, Alistair Montclair. I've heard whispers of that name in the oldest archives, in documents that historians like myself aren't supposed to find. Documents that speak of impossible things. The scent of magnolias drifts through my open window, but underneath it lurks something else. That same metallic smell from the wax, as if the very air has changed since I opened this letter. My grandmother's voice echoes in my memory, warning me about debts that follow bloodlines, about promises that bind the living to the dead. I read the letter again, my academic mind trying to process what sounds like medieval nonsense. A marriage to settle a debt my great-great-grandmother supposedly incurred? The rational part of me wants to laugh, to crumple this elaborate hoax and return to my research on forgotten New Orleans families. But my hands won't stop shaking, and that smell, roses and iron, seems to seep from the paper itself. The doorbell rings 3 times, sharp and decisive. Through the peephole, I see a man in an expensive black suit, his face pale as moonlight even in the afternoon sun. When I don't answer, he speaks through the door, his voice carrying an accent I can't place. Old, formal, with consonants that sound like they belong to another century. Miss Rousseau, I am here about the letter. My mouth goes dry. This isn't a prank. The weight of generations suddenly presses against my shoulders, and I understand with crystal clarity that my quiet life of dusty archives and forgotten histories is about to end. I lean against the door, feeling the cool wood against my forehead. What happens if I refuse? Silence stretches between us, heavy with implications. When he finally speaks, his words carry the weight of absolute certainty. The debt remains. Your bloodline remains cursed. And I am bound by honor to collect what was promised, one way or another. The floorboards creak under my feet as I step back from the door. Every instinct screams at me to run, but where can you run from a debt written in your very blood? My fingers trace the edge of the letter, and I feel the texture of something that isn't quite paper, something that seems to pulse with its own life. How long do I have to decide? You have already decided, Miss Rousseau. The moment you opened that letter, you accepted the terms. I will return at sunset to escort you to your new home. The finality in his voice sends ice through my veins. I press my ear to the door, listening for footsteps, but hear only silence. When I finally work up the courage to look through the peephole again, the hallway is empty, as if he was never there at all. I sink to the floor, the letter clutched in my hands, and for the first time in my adult life, I wish I had never learned to read. The afternoon sun streams through my windows, casting long shadows that seem to reach for me like grasping fingers. Somewhere in this city of the dead, a man, or something wearing a man's face, waits for darkness to claim what he believes is his. The metallic scent grows stronger as the day fades, and I realize with growing horror that it's not coming from the letter anymore. It's coming from me, as if my very blood recognizes a debt I never knew I owed. As sunset approaches, I understand that my life as I knew it is over, and I don't even know what. The sentence dies in my throat as a knock echoes through my apartment, soft but unmistakable. Sunset has arrived, and with it, my fate. I open the door to find him waiting in the hallway shadows, tall, pale, with dark hair that catches the dim light like obsidian. His eyes are the color of winter storms, and when they meet mine, I feel something inside me shift and settle, as if pieces of a puzzle I didn't know existed have suddenly clicked into place. Miss Rousseau. His voice carries that same otherworldly accent from earlier, but now I can see the mouth that speaks it. Perfectly sculpted, cold as marble. Are you ready? Ready. As if anyone could be ready for this. I grab my bag, hastily packed with the few things that matter, and follow him into the New Orleans night. His car is sleek and black, windows tinted so dark they seem to absorb light rather than reflect it. The interior smells of leather and that same metallic scent that's been haunting me all day. We drive in silence through the French Quarter, past the tourists and street musicians, past the world I know into something older and stranger. The buildings grow more elaborate, more Gothic, until we stop before wrought iron gates that look like they were forged in another century. Beyond them, a mansion rises from manicured gardens like something from a nightmare. All sharp angles and towering spires, windows that gleam like watching eyes. "Welcome to Montclair House," he says, and I catch the bitter edge in his voice. "Your new prison." The word hits me like a physical blow. Prison? He turns to look at me fully for the first time, and I see something flicker in those storm-gray eyes. Surprise, maybe, or regret. "Forgive me. Your new home." But the correction feels hollow, and we both know it. The interior of the mansion steals my breath. Vaulted ceilings disappear into shadows above crystal chandeliers that cast dancing light across marble floors. Tapestries line the walls, medieval scenes of hunts and battles, their threads still vibrant despite their obvious age. Everything speaks of wealth accumulated over centuries, of power that doesn't fade with passing generations. "Your rooms are on the second floor," Alistair says, his footsteps echoing in the vast foyer. "The library is on the third. You'll find it contains documents relevant to your situation." He starts to turn away, but I find my voice. "Wait. I need to understand what's happening to me, what this debt really means." He stops, his shoulders tensing beneath the expensive fabric of his jacket. When he faces me again, his expression has hardened into something that might have been carved from ice. "What it means, Miss Rousseau, is that your ancestor made a bargain she could not keep. The terms of that bargain have fallen to you. We will be married within the week, and you will remain here, under my protection, for as long as the contract requires." And how long is that? The silence stretches between us like a chasm. Finally he speaks, and his voice carries the weight of centuries. "Forever." The word hangs in the air like a death sentence. I want to argue, to demand explanations, but something in his eyes stops me. There's pain there, buried deep but unmistakable. This arrangement isn't what he wants either. "The library," I manage. "You said there were documents." "Third floor, east wing. Help yourself." His tone suggests he doesn't expect me to find anything comforting. "Dinner will be served at 8. You are not required to attend, but—" He pauses, and for just a moment, his mask slips. The solitude can be overwhelming in a house this size. He leaves me standing in the foyer, my footsteps echoing as I make my way to the sweeping staircase. The banister is smooth beneath my palm, worn by countless hands over countless years. How many people have walked these stairs? How many have been prisoners here before me? My rooms are elegant. A sitting area with bookshelves and a fireplace, a bedroom with windows that overlook the gardens. Everything is beautiful and cold, like a museum exhibit titled, "How the Wealthy Live." I drop my bag on the four-poster bed and immediately head for the library. The third-floor hallway stretches before me like something from a Gothic novel, lit by sconces that must have been installed when electricity was still a novelty. The library doors are massive oak panels carved with symbols I don't recognize, and when I push them open, my breath catches. Books. thousands of them, reaching from floor to ceiling on shelves that seem to go on forever. The smell of old leather and parchment fills my nostrils, and despite everything, I feel a flutter of excitement. This is a historian's paradise, documents and volumes that probably haven't seen daylight in decades. I pull down a volume at random and nearly drop it when I see the date, 1847. The binding is pristine, as if it was made yesterday. Another book yields an even earlier date, 1692. My hands shake as I realize what I'm looking at. These aren't reproductions or historical curiosities. These are original documents, preserved in impossible condition. How old is Alistair Montclair? The question sends ice through my veins, but I push it aside. I have work to do. If I'm going to survive whatever I've stumbled into, I need information. I need to understand the debt that's bound me to this place, to him. Hours pass as I search through genealogical records, property deeds, marriage contracts. The Montclair name appears again and again, stretching back through centuries of New Orleans history. Always the same first name, Alistair. Always described as a reclusive gentleman of independent means. Always unmarried. Until now. It's nearly midnight when I find it. A leather-bound journal hidden behind a row of agricultural surveys from the 1800s. The leather is soft with age, and when I open it, the pages release the scent of roses and something else. Something metallic. The handwriting is feminine, careful, and the first entry is dated September 15th, 1847. My heart stops when I read the name signed at the bottom, Evangeline Rousseau, my ancestor, the woman whose debt I've inherited. I read with growing fascination and horror as Evangeline tells her story. A young woman alone in New Orleans, her family dead from yellow fever, her inheritance stolen by unscrupulous relatives. She writes of stealing into the garden district at night, desperate and starving, trying to break into houses that might contain food or valuables. And then she writes about the night she tried to rob Montlair House. I found him in the garden, bleeding from wounds that should have killed any mortal man. The attackers had fled, thinking him dead, but I could see his chest rising and falling with labored breaths. He was beautiful, even dying, pale as moonlight with hair dark as sin. I should have run. Instead, I knelt beside him and pressed my hands to the terrible gashes across his throat. My hands tremble as I turn the page. He opened his eyes as I worked to stop the bleeding, and I saw eternity looking back at me. "Why?" he whispered, and I had no answer except that I could not watch anything so beautiful die. He took my hand in his, and I felt power flow between us. Ancient, terrible power that bound us together with words I did not understand. "A life for a life," he said. "A debt that will be repaid when the time comes." The journal continues with entries describing their strange courtship, Evangeline living as a guest in Montlair House, slowly learning the truth about her mysterious benefactor. She writes of his kindness, his loneliness, the way he would disappear for days at a time and return looking haunted. And she writes about falling in love with a man who wasn't entirely human. "He told me tonight what he truly is. I should be terrified, should flee this house and never look back. Instead, I find myself grieving for him, for the isolation he has endured, for the humanity he lost. So long ago that he barely remembers what it felt like. He saved my life by bringing me here, but I saved his first, there in the garden with my foolish mortal hands trying to stop immortal blood from flowing." The entries grow shorter, more desperate, as Evangeline realizes the impossible situation they're in. She loves him, but she's mortal, and he's not. She's aging while he remains frozen in time. The debt between them has become something else, a bond that transcends the original bargain but can never be fully consummated. The final entry is dated 2 years later, and the handwriting is shaky, as if written in haste or illness. The fever has taken hold. I will not recover. I can feel death approaching like a tide I cannot turn back. Alistair rages against it, but even his supernatural power cannot stop what has already begun. I have made him promise to let me go, to not attempt the transformation that would make me like him. I cannot bear the thought of existing as he does, beautiful and terrible, and forever alone. But the debt remains unpaid. A life for a life, he said, and I have not given him the life he saved. The magic that bound us will not release its hold simply because I am dying. It will pass to my children and to their children until someone of my blood fulfills what I could not. I die loving him, and damning my descendants to pay the price of that love. The journal slips from my numb fingers and falls to the library floor with a soft thud. I stare at the empty fireplace, trying to process what I've just read. This isn't about settling a debt. This is about completing something that was left unfinished over a century ago. A love story that ended in tragedy and has been waiting all this time for resolution. A sound from the doorway makes me spin around. Alistair stands there, still dressed in his black suit, his face unreadable in the lamplight. "You found it," he says quietly. "How long have you been watching me?" "Long enough." He steps into the library, his movements fluid and silent. "I wondered if you would discover the truth, or if you would simply accept the story about debts and obligations." I scramble to my feet, the journal clutched against my chest. "She loved you." Something flickers across his face, pain so raw it makes me take a step back. "Yes, and I loved her. More than I had any right to, considering what I am." "What you are." I repeat the words, tasting their implications. "The journal says you're not human." He laughs, but there's no humor in it. "I am vampire, Miss Rousseau. Ancient, cursed, sustained by blood and bound by magic older than your country. Is that what you wanted to hear?" The words should terrify me. Instead, I find myself studying his face, looking for traces of the man Evangeline wrote about. The loneliness is there, carved into the sharp angles of his features like a scar that never healed. "She saved your life," I say. "Yes. And you couldn't save hers." His jaw tightens. "No, I could have transformed her, made her like me, but she refused. She said she would rather die human than live forever as a monster." The bitterness in his voice cuts through me. "And you think that's what you are? A monster?" He moves closer, and I catch that metallic scent again. Blood, I realize now. Ancient blood and old roses, and something indefinably sad. "I have lived for 8 centuries, Miss Rousseau. I have killed to survive, manipulated the living for my own ends, watched everyone I might have cared for grow old and die, while I remained unchanged. If that does not make me a monster, what would? 8 centuries. The number staggers me. How old were you when you were changed?" 28. The same age you are now." The coincidence sends a chill down my spine. That's not a coincidence, is it? Nothing about this situation is coincidence. The magic that bound Evangeline and me is precise in its requirements. It waited until you reached the same age she was when she saved me. It will not be satisfied with substitutes or approximations. I sink into one of the leather reading chairs, overwhelmed. What exactly does it want? He remains standing, silhouetted against the towering bookshelves like a figure from one of the Gothic novels lining the walls. What it has always wanted: the completion of what was begun, a life for a life, freely given. And if I refuse? Then the curse that has followed your bloodline for 5 generations will continue to follow it. Your children, should you have any, will face the same choice, and their children after them. He pauses, and when he continues, his voice is soft as silk and sharp as glass. Though I should mention that those who refuse the bond rarely live long enough to have children. The magic has ways of collecting what it's owed. Fear claws at my throat, but I force myself to stay calm. And if I agree? Then you become my wife in truth, bound to me by vows older than any human ceremony. You will live here, under my protection, for as long as you choose. As long as I choose? I catch the qualification. His smile is bitter as winter. I am immortal, Miss Rousseau. You are not. Eventually, age will claim you as it claimed Evangeline, and I will be alone again. The magic will be satisfied by your natural death, but you'll still be here. Forever. Yes. The weight of his existence settles over me like a shroud. 800 years of solitude, and now he's facing the prospect of loving and losing again. No wonder he treats this arrangement like a prison sentence. For him, it might as well be. There's something else, I say, thinking of the tenderness in Evangeline's descriptions of their time together. You cared for her. Really cared for her. This isn't just about magical obligations, is it? He turns away, but not before I see his carefully constructed mask crack. What I felt for Evangeline died, with her. What happens between us will be dictated by duty, nothing more. But his voice wavers on the last words, and I realize he's lying, to me, and probably to himself. A clock somewhere in the house chimes one, and I suddenly feel the weight of the day crushing down on me. Everything I thought I knew about the world has been turned upside down. Vampires are real. Magic is real. And I'm bound by both to a man who's been carrying the weight of impossible love for over a century. I need time to think, I say. You have until the wedding. 3 days hence. 3 days. I look around the library, at the thousands of volumes that might contain answers, might hold some key to understanding my situation. 3 days to decide whether to spend my life with a creature from legend or condemn future generations of my family to face the same impossible choice. The library is yours, Alistair says, as if reading my thoughts. Perhaps you'll find something I missed, some loophole in the magic that binds us. His laugh is hollow. I've had 150 years to search, but perhaps fresh eyes will see what mine could not. He starts to leave, then pauses at the doorway. For what it's worth, Miss Rousseau, I am sorry. You deserve better than to be caught in the wake of someone else's tragedy. And then he's gone, leaving me alone with the ghosts of the past and the weight of an impossible future. I pick up Evangeline's journal and hold it close, trying to draw strength from my ancestors' words. She faced this same choice, this same terrible man, and found love in the darkness. But she also died young, her love unfinished and her debt unpaid. I settle back into the chair and begin to read again, searching for answers in the careful script of a woman who loved a monster and paid the ultimate price. Outside the library windows, New Orleans sleeps under a canopy of stars, unaware that somewhere in the Garden District, ancient magic is stirring to claim what it's owed. The metallic scent grows stronger as I read, and I realize it's not just coming from the journal anymore. It's in the air, in the very walls of this house, seeping from centuries of supernatural presence. This is what my life smells like now. Roses and blood and the weight of eternity. 3 days to decide if I can live with that scent for the rest of my mortal life. 3 days to decide if falling in love with a monster is worth the price my family has been paying for generations. As I turn the pages of Evangeline's journal, searching for hope in her tragic love story, I hear footsteps in the hallway outside. Slow, measured, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. Alistair, unable to sleep, unable to rest, carrying his vigil through another endless night. The sound breaks my heart in ways I don't expect, and I realize with growing alarm that my 3 days of decision-making may already be compromised. Because despite everything, the supernatural circumstances, the coercion, the impossible future stretching ahead. I find myself wondering what it would be like to ease the loneliness I heard in his voice, what it would be like to love a man who's forgotten how to be human. The journal trembles in my hands as dawn approaches, and somewhere in the distance, I hear the sound of. The sound cuts through the pre-dawn silence like a blade, glass shattering, followed by heavy footsteps and voices I don't recognize. My blood turns to ice as I realize these aren't the careful, measured sounds of Alistair moving through his ancient home. These are the sounds of invasion. I drop Evangeline's journal and press myself against the library wall, my heart hammering so hard I'm certain it can be heard throughout the house. The footsteps are coming closer, accompanied by the scrape of boots on marble and hushed, urgent whispers. Check the upper floors. He has to be here somewhere. What about the girl? The contact said there was a mortal in the house. Leave her. She's not our concern. Terror floods my system as I realize what's happening. Someone has come for Alistair, and they're armed, organized, and clearly familiar with the layout of Montlair House. I think of him pacing the hallway just hours ago, carrying the weight of 8 centuries alone, and something fierce and protective rises in my chest. The library door creaks open, and I hold my breath as a figure in dark clothing slips inside. He moves with predatory grace, scanning the shadows between the towering bookshelves. When his gaze passes over my hiding spot, I see his eyes reflect the dim lamplight like an animal's. Another vampire, and definitely not a friend. He turns away, apparently satisfied that the library is empty, and I wait until his footsteps fade before creeping toward the door. I need to warn Alistair, need to find him before these intruders do. The house suddenly feels like a maze, its familiar luxury transformed into something sinister and threatening. I make it to the second-floor landing when I hear Alistair's voice, cold and commanding, echoing from somewhere below. Gentlemen, to what do I owe this unexpected visit? You know why we're here, Montclair. The responding voice carries an accent I can't place. Old world, aristocratic, dripping with disdain. The council has grown tired of your retirement. There are matters that require your attention. I made my position clear 2 centuries ago. I want no part in council affairs. A harsh laugh. Your wants are irrelevant. You have knowledge we need, connections that must be leveraged. The old bloodlines are stirring, and neutrality is no longer an option. I creep down the stairs, staying in the shadows, until I can see into the main foyer. Alistair stands at the center of it all, still dressed in his black suit, facing 3 figures who radiate the same otherworldly presence he does. But where Alistair carries himself with melancholy dignity, these creatures project cold menace. And if I refuse? Alistair's voice remains level, but I catch the tension coiled beneath his calm exterior. The apparent leader, tall, pale, with silver hair that gleams like metal, smiles with too many teeth. Then we'll be forced to make you understand the consequences of defying the council, starting with your little mortal pet. The words hit me like a physical blow, and I see Alistair's entire body go rigid. Leave her out of this, Casimir. She has nothing to do with our business. Doesn't she? Casimir circles Alistair like a shark scenting blood. Word has reached us about your upcoming nuptials. How romantic, the great Alistair Montclair, finally ready to take a bride after 8 centuries of solitude. One wonders what makes this particular mortal so special. She fulfills an old obligation, nothing more. But I hear the lie in his voice, and apparently so does Casimir. His smile widens, revealing fangs that gleam like ivory daggers. Fascinating. The monster develops a conscience, or perhaps his head tilts, and those predatory eyes fix on something behind Alistair. Perhaps he develops feelings. I realize with growing horror that Casimir is looking directly at me, hidden in the shadows of the staircase. Somehow he knows I'm here, knows I'm listening. And from the satisfied expression on his face, that was exactly what he wanted. Run. Alistair's voice cuts through the air like a whip, and I know he's figured out what's happening. Mia, run. Now. But it's too late. One of Casimir's companions moves with inhuman speed, appearing at the base of the stairs before I can take a step. His hand closes around my wrist with crushing force, and I cry out as he drags me down into the foyer. How lovely, Casimir purrs, studying me like a specimen under glass. She has Evangeline's eyes. Tell me, my dear, do you have her spirit as well? I try to speak, but terror has stolen my voice. All I can do is look at Alistair, who stands frozen like a statue, his face a mask of barely contained rage. Let her go, he says quietly. Your business is with me. But she makes such an effective bargaining chip, Casimir replies, trailing one pale finger along my cheek. His touch is cold as winter stone, and I shudder involuntarily. Here's what's going to happen, Montclair. You're going to come with us, willingly and peacefully, and assist the council in our current endeavors. In return, your little bride-to-be lives to see another sunset. And if I refuse? Casimir's grip tightens on my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. I see centuries of cruelty reflected in those pale eyes, and I know with absolute certainty that he would kill me without a moment's hesitation. Then I'll drain her dry right here in your precious foyer, and you can spend the rest of eternity knowing that your stubborn pride cost an innocent woman her life. The silence stretches between them, thick with menace and impossible choices. I want to tell Alistair not to sacrifice himself for me, that I'm not worth whatever the council wants from him. But the vampire holding me has positioned himself so that his fangs hover just inches from my throat, and I don't dare speak. Very well, Alistair says finally, and the defeat in his voice breaks something inside my chest. I accept your terms. Casimir's smile is triumphant. Excellent. I knew you'd see reason eventually. But as they begin to move toward the door, something unexpected happens. Alistair catches my eyes across the foyer, and for just a moment, his carefully maintained composure cracks. What I see there isn't defeat. It's apology, and determination, and something that looks almost like, I'm sorry, he whispers, so quietly I almost miss it, for everything. Then he moves. I've never seen anything like it. Alistair becomes a blur of motion, faster than thought, faster than fear. The vampire holding me has just enough time to look surprised before Alistair's hand closes around his throat. There's a sound like breaking branches, and suddenly I'm free, stumbling backward as my captor crumples to the marble floor. Casimir snarls and lunges, but Alistair is already turning, already moving to intercept. They collide with enough force to crack the marble beneath their feet, and suddenly the elegant foyer has become a battlefield. I scramble for cover behind one of the massive pillars, my heart pounding as I watch creatures of legend tear into each other with savage grace. They move too fast for my human eyes to follow completely. Blurs of motion punctuated by the sounds of impact and the crash of priceless antiques being destroyed. The safe room! Alistair shouts over the chaos, never taking his eyes off his opponents. Behind the painting of the garden, the combination is Evangeline's birthday, September 15th, 1829. I start to protest, to tell him I won't leave him, but he cuts me off with a look that scorches. Go. Now. If you've ever trusted anyone in your life, trust me now. The third vampire, who's been circling like a predator waiting for an opening, suddenly breaks away from the fight and starts toward me. I run, my bare feet slipping on the smooth marble, racing through corridors that seemed welcoming just hours ago, and now feel like a nightmare maze. I find the painting, a serene garden scene that seems obscenely peaceful given the violence erupting downstairs. My hands shake as I fumble with the hidden mechanism Evangeline must have known about, must have used during her own time of danger. The panel slides away to reveal a steel door with an electronic lock, and I punch in the numbers with trembling fingers. The safe room is small, but well appointed. Comfortable furniture, modern amenities, and walls that feel thick enough to stop anything short of an explosion. I seal the door behind me and sink to the floor, pressing my ear to the steel, to try to hear what's happening outside. The sounds of fighting continue for what feels like hours but is probably only minutes. Crashes, inhuman snarls, the splintering of wood and the tinkle of broken glass. Then, abruptly, silence. I wait, hardly daring to breathe until I hear footsteps approaching the safe room. Slow, careful footsteps that could belong to anyone. Mia, Alistair's voice, rough with exhaustion. It's over. You can come out now. But something in his tone makes me hesitate. There's a finality there that sends ice through my veins. Are you hurt? I call through the door. A pause. I'll heal. I enter the combination and step out into a foyer that looks like a war zone. Furniture overturned, paintings askew, marble cracked and stained with something dark that might be blood. And in the center of it all stands Alistair, his expensive suit torn and bloodied, his face pale even by his usual standards. Of Casimir and his companions, there's no sign. Where are they? Gone. He moves carefully, as if every step costs him. For now. But they'll be back. And next time, they'll bring more than 3 soldiers. I want to go to him, to check his injuries, but something in his posture keeps me at a distance. He's withdrawing again, pulling that icy mask back into place. This is what my world looks like, Mia, he says quietly. Violence and blood and ancient grudges that never die. Is this really what you want for yourself? The council won't give up. They'll keep coming, keep using you as leverage to control me. And eventually, he trails off, but I can fill in the blanks. Eventually, someone won't be fast enough or strong enough or lucky enough, and I'll pay the price for loving a creature trapped in supernatural politics. So what are you saying? He meets my eyes, and I see the decision there before he speaks it aloud. I'm saying the debt is forgiven. The magical binding is broken. You're free to go. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? I've found a way to break the curse without fulfilling its original terms. The magic accepts my blood as payment, a life for a life, as it demanded. But my life is immortal, so the debt can never truly be collected. The binding dissolves, and your family is free. I stare at him, trying to process what he's saying. But what does that mean for you? His smile is bitter as winter moonlight. It means I remain as I always have. Alone. Alistair. Go, Mia. His voice turns hard, commanding. Pack your things and leave New Orleans. Start over somewhere far from here. Somewhere the council will never think to look for you. Forget about Montlair House. Forget about ancient curses. Forget about you? The question hangs in the air between us, and for a moment his mask slips completely. I see the longing there, the desperate hope he's trying so hard to suppress. Yes, he whispers, forget about me. But I'm already shaking my head, already moving toward him despite the danger, despite the blood and the chaos and the certain knowledge that his world will always be touched by violence. What if I don't want to forget? He backs away as if I'm the dangerous one, as if my mortality is somehow more threatening than the supernatural creatures who just tried to kill us both. You don't know what you're saying. The adrenaline, the fear, it's making you think you feel something that isn't real. Isn't it? I stop just out of reach, close enough to smell roses and blood and that indefinable sadness that clings to him like cologne. Tell me you feel nothing for me, Alistair. Tell me this is just about magical obligations and ancient debts. Look me in the eyes and tell me you want me to leave. He tries. I can see him gathering the words, preparing to deliver the lie that will send me away and keep me safe. But when he opens his mouth, nothing comes out except a sound that might be a sob. I've watched everyone I cared about grow old and die while I remained unchanged. He finally manages. I can't do it again. I won't survive losing you the way I lost her. And there it is. The truth he's been trying so hard to hide. He does feel something for me. Something real and powerful and terrifying in its intensity. Then don't lose me, I say simply. Choose to keep me instead. You don't understand what you're asking. I understand perfectly. I take another step closer, and this time he doesn't retreat. I understand that you've been alone for 800 years. I understand that you loved Evangeline and lost her, and that the pain of that loss has been eating at you ever since. And I understand that you're terrified of caring about someone again because you think the universe will find a way to take them from you. His hands are shaking now, as if he's fighting some internal battle he's not sure he can win. What I don't understand, I continue, is why you think I'm as fragile as she was. I'm not dying of fever, Alistair. I'm not refusing your protection out of some misguided sense of morality. I'm here, I'm alive, and I'm telling you that I choose this. I choose you. The council. We'll have to go through both of us. You could die. I could die crossing the street tomorrow. I could die in a car accident, or from cancer, or from any one of 1,000 mortal frailties. At least this way, I'd die loving someone who loves me back. The words hang between us like a challenge, and I see the moment when his resistance finally crumbles. He reaches for me with hands that still carry traces of blood from the fight, and when he pulls me against his chest, I feel the rapid beat of his heart. Proof that whatever else he is, he's not entirely dead. You're going to break my heart, he whispers against my hair. Maybe, I admit. Or maybe I'm going to spend the next 60 years healing it. He pulls back to look at me, his storm-gray eyes searching my face for any sign of doubt or fear. What he finds there must satisfy him, because when he kisses me, it's not the desperate farewell kiss of a man saying goodbye. It's the kiss of someone who's finally decided to stop running from love. When we break apart, the first hints of dawn are creeping through the broken windows of the foyer, painting everything in shades of gold and rose. Alistair's skin seems to absorb the light rather than reflect it, and I realize I'm seeing him in natural sunlight for the first time. I thought vampires burned in the sun, I say. He smiles, and it's the first genuine smile I've seen from him. Another myth. We're not comfortable in bright light. It weakens us, but we don't burst into flames. Good to know. I look around at the destruction surrounding us. So what happens now? Now we rebuild. We prepare for the council's return, and we figure out how to make a life together in spite of everything that's trying to tear us apart. Sounds complicated. Terrifyingly so. I stand on my toes to kiss him again, tasting possibilities and promises on his lips. I'm a historian, remember? I specialize in complicated things that everyone else has given up on. His laugh is soft and wondering, as if he's forgotten how the sound feels in his throat. Then perhaps we have a chance after all. As the sun rises over New Orleans, painting Montlair House in shades of gold and hope, I realize that some curses are meant to be broken, and some debts are meant to be transformed into something else entirely, something that looks a lot like love and feels an awful lot like coming home. The scent of roses grows stronger in the morning light, mixing with the metallic tang of spilled blood and the promise of whatever comes next. I breathe it all in and know with absolute certainty that this is where I belong, in the aftermath of violence, in the arms of a monster who's forgotten how to be anything but gentle with me, in a house full of ghosts and secrets, and the possibility of redemption. Evangeline's debt has been paid at last, but not in the way anyone expected. Love, it turns out, is the only currency that matters in the end.